Welcome back to Cityline. With me, I have two individuals that are, well, they have a permanent place in my heart. I get to see them every week, and it just gets better and better. I'm talking about one of my favorite organizations here in Tacoma, which is MDC. Please join me in welcoming Pam E. Duncan, known as Pam Duncan. You are still and joyously effective as the president and CEO of Metropolitan Development Council. Welcome back, my dear.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me again.
Oh, my pleasure. And it gets even better because you brought this person next to me. I'm talking about Rob Huff. He is the Director of Advocacy and Communication for MDC. Rob Huff, welcome back to Cityline.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here.
I think the last time, Rob, I actually had you on Cityline was probably when you were in the studio. We might have been on the comfy couch, but it has been a while. So it's so wonderful to have you back and see you like this. So Pam, let's talk about, for somebody who's just tuning in for the first time and says MDC, what does MDC do? What does MDC provide for our community?
First of all, MDC stands for Metropolitan Development Council. We are one of 30-odd community action agencies across the state of Washington and part of a network of more than 1,000 community action agencies across the nation. We provide services that range from addressing immediate needs such as utility and rental assistance, weatherization, all the way up to educational services, housing and case management services, as well as behavioral health services, from inpatient detox and evaluation and treatment to outpatient chemical dependency, supportive employment, and co-occurring disorder services.
That is incredible. All of those services say to me in a big neon sign, the fabric of life, the glue that holds us together. So given the criticalness of those services, Rob, how has business changed for MDC because of the pandemic?
So things have changed a lot, as you can imagine. A number of our services, especially our behavioral health services, and some of our housing programs that have 24-hour support for those residents, those folks have continued to work on site and in the office as normally and as safely as possible throughout COVID. Our other services have shifted to become largely online and provided remotely. So everything from youth education services, where we're working with students in the high schools and colleges through our educational Opportunity Center, as well as through youth education. Those kinds of programs have worked remotely, and of course our administrative staff have been working remotely. So it's been quite an evolution over the last 11 months now, almost a year.
That is the P in pivot in terms of what you just described. It's unbelievable. So Pam, there is a weekly Zoom conversation that happens with MDC called Straight Talk. What was the inspiration for the program Straight Talk?
The initial inspiration was realizing, as we had pivoted to a virtual way of operating, that we were receiving so much information about COVID-19 daily throughout the day. And I realized at the same time that all of us who are in this arena of social services, that we're getting this information. There are so many people out there in our communities who had no idea what was going on. I just thought about even within my own household, that unless they overheard me talking, they didn't know about what was coming down the pike, the rapid evolution of the information about COVID. And I just thought we need to share this information in a way that's not intimidating to our community. And I just thought it would be great to have a conversation and we just talk about what's going on with the coronavirus and the pandemic. So we reached out to one of our partner agencies, Tacoma Urban League, and said, hey, would you like to partner and we can do this together? Because it's a way to, again, to work together and to show the community that there's a collaboration that's going on in sharing this information. So that's how we started out. That was the inspiration.
So, question for both of you, and Rob, I'll have you jump in first, and then Pam, you can close the loop on it. How has that weekly conversation, Straight Talk, shed light on the challenges that we faced here in Tacoma and Pierce County, Rob?
So much like the way that MDC has worked throughout the pandemic, there's been a pivot in the way that Straight Talk has reached out to the community as well throughout the last 11 months. It really did focus very tightly on the impacts of COVID, the disproportionate impacts on BIPOC communities, from who was getting infected, who was facing the hardest illness related to COVID. That was really the early days. And then we've since branched out and had distinct conversations about systemic racism, about social justice, and about other related topics to how COVID is impacting the community, even looking at how it's impacting the business community, for instance. So it has truly evolved over the time, and our guests and audience has evolved over that time too.
Pam, what would you add to that?
I think there was a very obvious shift that began with the conversation about the disparate impacts of COVID in communities of color. And immediately following that episode, there was the murder of George Floyd. And we needed, it was really an imperative that we talk about that. There was no way that we could not talk about that on Straight Talk. And it was one of the most highly attended conversations that we had. And we entitled that We're Done Dying. And the folks who were on that show were very open, very transparent about, including myself, about the hurt, the feelings we were having, and crying on that session. And we realized something happened with that episode, and that we had to follow that that palatable change and begin talking about social justice. And so we've sort of shifted into sort of this weekly, early evening kind of news conversation about whatever it is that's going on in our community, not just, particularly related to COVID-19.
So, Rob, your title, Director of Advocacy, it says everything about MDC. So when you look at Straight Talk, and you think about the topics and the guests and the audience, what are some of the ones that come to mind, and who is Straight Talk for?
Yeah, when we originally started the show, we really did talk about trying to reach out to communities that may not be in the normal flow of information. And I think we've continued to try to reach out to that kind of audience, an audience that doesn't necessarily spend their evening tuned into the news, that is more likely to want to dig deeper into topics. And mostly our audience, it's split. We typically have a group of folks who join us on Zoom, who ask us questions through the Q&A, and work, as you know, Amanda, as our facilitator for these conversations, who work with our guests to try to ask their own questions and be more engaged that way. And then we have kind of a little bit more passive audience, a larger audience actually, that participates in the shows by watching on Facebook Live and commenting on the program as it's happening there. So the audience is really split. And then, of course, after every night's show, we take that video and edit the ends of it slightly and put it up on YouTube and link to it from the MDC website in order to encourage more people to see the archive.
So, as you mentioned, I have the pleasure of facilitating the weekly conversation, which is some of the best work that I do during the week, I have to tell you. So we're looking at Pam, we just finished, the three of us, the 36th conversation in this series. We're coming up on 1 year here pretty soon. As you look back on this, what do you hope to have accomplished through these conversations?
First of all, I have to say the three of us working together is a hoot. I love it. I look forward to every episode. You just don't know what's going to happen, what we're going to talk about. One of the things that has really been evident to me is that because we operate virtually now, we are not place and space limited, that now the world is our oyster and we can reach out to folks globally to participate in our conversations. And it makes for such a richer discourse about the issues that we are seeing. So, just recently we had that conversation with our Professor Bangstad from Norway about social justice. And so I think as we come up on our 1 year anniversary, what I want to see is that we've just really enlarged our community in terms of talking about the things that impact our community, and that folks really turn to Straight Talk because they know, first of all, they're going to hear straight talk, and they're going to hear so many different perspectives. And I think that's what makes for a rich community, a rich culture.
Oh, so well said. I want to say that Straight Talk, in addition to opening up your mind and your heart, it also gives resources. It is very normal to see Rob put in a website in the chat, to see Pam put in a book that an author has been talking about, to have people chime in and say, I need help with finding food banks. And no sooner do they finish the conversation than one of you has already put a link down below. So it really has become a mind, body, spirit resource for our community. And I can't thank you two and your teams enough for what you bring to Straight Talk every Monday. It is a gift. And it's been a gift to have you for this time. So thank you very, very much. And of course, you're not going to be strangers because I know where to find both of you.
You do.
Yes,
Thank
you do.
you so much. Thank you for having Metropolitan Development Council on as a guest again on City Line. And thank you both for what you do as we endeavor to serve our community in different ways.
You're more than welcome. We have much more to come on City Line, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this quick break.